Awesome.
I'll just introduce one more council member, I think.
Okay.
Oh, and then we're just waiting for.
Ann?
Oh, so I just think my password is probably expired.
Oh, no, you're presenting. One more council member, I think. Oh, and then we're just waiting for Ann.
Bueller.
What's
going on?
Probably expired.
No, you're presenting.
There's a nice loop going on.
This would be way fun for anybody tuning in.
You got it? Ready? All right.
Oh, Mayor.
That was good stuff right there.
Sounds just not you.
When you go around to different and learn what different, especially when I was
Hey, Mara.
what each kind of did and everything. So it was very beneficial what presented. So, yeah.
All right, let's get started since we only have a half hour to run through our work session. To give the mayor and then Mara enough time to talk about some things, but let's first talk about, oh, wait. Sorry, everyone's here except Angela. I'm assuming she'll be here shortly. So welcome to the 5:30 p.m. joint work session of April 1st, 2025. We've got a couple of things on our agenda, mostly as it relates to the new market tax credits. Were there any questions that came up over the last week? Any new flow charts you want to see? I assume that's a no. And then we have, looks like Ed's gonna, the Marshall White, naming of the Marshall White Field House. Any questions, or we had talked about maybe tabling this last week. I don't know if we've gotten any more information, or we still want to table and give some time, or what do you guys where are you guys at this week?
I thought that we would certainly take public input. If there, although I think the intention would be to table it, unless there's just absolutely no reason. And we'll probably be able to determine that from the public input.
Just to give us some more time.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, no, I think.
I'm just gonna forward you an email I got from Ed. I'd ask him to provide the names of other facilities in the city that have been named for people that weren't related to a sponsorship donation situation. So I'm just gonna forward that to you now so you can take a look at that.
Yeah, I think public input will be good as well, so. All right, let me just make sure there's nothing else. We have a couple of people coming to talk about the Financial Literacy Month, and then Fernando Morales is going to talk to us about the Ogden School District's Family and Teen Center. Questions? All right. In that case, there's no other questions. Let's turn the time over unless Jim, you have any other.
Anything else?
Let's turn the time over to Mara Brown from the administrative office.
Yeah. We're just passing it down. Thanks. Must be a new microphone. Mike, we're good? Okay.
Yeah, and they're always on, so you have to. That's what I heard.
That works.
They're very sensitive.
Perfect. The opportunity, if you guys were paying any attention today, you probably noticed a couple dust ups. One was an April Fool's quote joke, not a funny joke, that Ogden City would be tearing down Union Station. That certainly was not the case, but
I saw it.
people took concern to that, and rightly so. And we spent a lot of staff resources and city energy and taxpayer resources to reassure people that that was absolutely not the case and that it was a bad April Fool's joke.
It's control.
Damage control, but nonetheless, real damage. Glad to use that word. Joking is not always funny. That cost us real resources and real bandwidth, and it set us back as a city and as a community. And there's a lot of frustration out there, under false pretense that we're going to do something that we would never do. So that was an unfortunate circumstance that we all woke up to this morning. In addition to another unfortunate circumstance that we were notified, I was notified late last night by one of our anchor downtown business owners at Hardy Salons that there were signs posted in Electric Alley by the new management group at the Marriott Hotel that they'd be charging for parking in their portion of the Electric Alley lot. That came as quite a surprise to all of us. There was no advance notice or warning to the city or to local business owners. So it was another quick scramble. We were able to talk about it some overnight and prepare. We had a team meeting at the administrative level immediately first thing this morning. It was the first and only topic until we got it all figured out. And then we executed on a communications plan to try and get information out there as fast as possible. Certainly we've got Mayor Brown here today, who's my point on the effort today. But we also have Emil Vargason here, who's parking coordinator to help give you guys maybe an update on where we're at today, recognizing that this is probably an evolving issue, that new facts continue to come in through the day and will continue to come in. And we're also continuing to engage with the new management group at the hotel in good faith to try and come up with some future solutions. But recognizing that today we had some emergency scenarios on our hands to make sure that downtown businesses were able to function and operate smoothly, and that patrons had opportunities to access those businesses. So I'll turn it over to Emil.
I was just curious what part of are you able to talk about what part of the parking lot it is? Okay, great. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Perfect. Thanks for the update.
Yeah, what part of the parking lot is what was the subject of much
Okay.
confusion today, because the way that the property lines sit between our parcel and the hotel's parcel in the middle, it kind of zigzags a little bit. And so where the signs were placed, there wasn't any clear indication of where the paid parking is and where our lot begins, because we still have our signs throughout Electric Alley that state 2-hour parking unless by permit. And so the one thing that we didn't want happen is to have customers and other people visiting downtown pay for parking while they were legally parked in our parcel, because they were charging, they are charging $14 for 2 hours of parking in that location. And so I think that was some of the uproar, is that I think maybe that's why you received an email from one of the salon owners, because they did get a warning saying that they can't park in that location without possibly getting a citation. The business owners were under the impression that we put up the parking signs because it said paid parking, and they were under the impression that we're in a pause with managed parking, while we're in negotiations with the stakeholders currently to come up with some kind of resolution that works for everybody for managed parking. So yeah, it has been a little bit of damage control for the business part of it, for thinking that we put up those signs, which we did not. But we did make contact with Diamond Parking today. They did take down those signs. Those signs are down. They are going to leave them down, from my understanding, throughout the month of April, and they are going to have better painting, painted parts on the asphalt to better indicate where their parking lot ends and where ours begins. The management, the hotel is under new management, and I just found out about that myself because we were in talks with the old manager, because there is a parking easement agreement that has since lapsed in December. We were trying to get a new agreement signed with them, because that parking easement allows both our customers and their customers to freely park throughout Electric Alley without recourse, any ticketing. And so our intention is to get in touch with the new management group at the hotel to go over this this agreement to see if they understood what that agreement is and what it did, moving forward with that. And so,
Thank you.
Have the Ogden City parking signs been received by the businesses along there, the 2-hour parking signs?
how they've been received?
Yeah.
So you can never do enough patrol along 25th Street. And that is one of the things that we're addressing with the stakeholders, because there is a sense that there isn't any patrols that happen along 25th Street. And that's just simply not true. The issue that we tend to have on 25th Street is that it is a 2-hour parking limit, but where we have 2 officers that patrol all of downtown Ogden, sometimes 2-hour parking maybe turn into 4-hour parking, because it depends on what time that officer goes and chalks the tire and marks that as available. Another issue we're having is that a lot of individuals have learned that when an officer does come by and initially chalk the tire, that gives them a 2-hour time limit to leave the vehicle there. Then they are watching and seeing when the officer comes back out, and then they move the vehicle from that location to a location 2 stalls or 3 stalls away, because technically they are moving the vehicle, so that just resets the 2-hour time. So it's always a cat and mouse game of trying to catch those individuals.
Is that the same with the electric alley? It's posted there.
The electric alley is a little bit different because it's a lot easier to patrol electric alley because of just the way that the lot is situated. An officer can get out of their vehicle and walk that lot pretty quickly and mark those vehicles, where electric alley vehicles are parked diagonally, and it just is a little bit more time consuming to walk that straight 3 blocks of 25th Street. So there's lots, electric alley is just easier to patrol right now, the way that we have it set up in the old fashioned way.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Just a question on if there's been any discussion with the hotel about the paid parking provider. I know that, I mean, certainly I'd fault them for wanting to do that. But as we go forward with our paid parking plan, it sure would be nice if one app was all you needed and it didn't matter where you parked, you could park. You know, so is there any discussion about maybe coordinating that service provider?
Yeah, there will be when we get in touch with the hotel to see about that, because yeah, that is the one major area concern, is the way that everything, all of the property lines kind of interact. Is we don't want to make it difficult for people to know where their parking is and where ours will be. So that's something we'll have to try to coordinate in the future to see if we can make that as streamlined as possible and easy for people that are parking downtown. Because managed parking is supposed to be fluid, easy, not something you think about. Because if they have to think about it, then it's going to deter people from wanting to use the resource of parking, and that's not the intention of that. It's supposed to be easy.
Thank you.
So when is our plan supposed to be done?
Our plan as far
Our
as
parking plan?
with our parking plan. So we have been in talks with various stakeholders, business owners in downtown Ogden since January. We are hoping that we can come to a resolution here within the next few weeks. We're just getting some final numbers on some other feedback of what they're wanting, as far as they brought up some good points with, what happens with people that just want to pick up, 15-minute loading zones, things like that. So we've gotten with our parking consultant to run through some numbers, and hopefully our next meeting with our stakeholders is on April 14th. So hopefully we can provide them what we are presenting with, permitting and costs and things like that. So hopefully in a couple of weeks, we'll have everything wrapped up.
It seems like you need to have it done before the end of April, or all the people that don't want to pay $14 are going to end up paying $0 in our lots.
Yeah. And
it will be even a worse situation for the 25th Street businesses.
Yeah, and I think there is a silver lining with all this as well. I think that even though that the situation caught us all off guard, I think it does represent that there is a need for managed parking downtown, and where ours would be quite a bit more affordable compared to what that, Diamond's presenting. I just think that it clarifies our case as far as, why managed parking in that specific lot and area is a necessity of try to get cars to be overturning.
Yeah, Mayor.
I really appreciate it.
I don't know. Can he get picked up?
Yeah, we've got overhead.
Yeah, not sure how it's working.
We don't either.
Teaching an old dog new tricks. I'm like, no, thanks for all the details email. And I think he's right. This instance absolutely highlights the need for a managed and coordinated parking approach downtown. It's becoming more and more obvious that there's a need there. But while we do this, the input that we're getting from business owners has been really, really good. The tone is collaborative, and we want to make sure that we're remaining collaborative with the hotel group as well. I mean, let's not forget how important the hotel and hospitality industry is to our downtown, to our economic vitality, to tourism as an anchor for our economic vitality as a community. And so I don't want us to walk away from this thinking that we have a bad faith partner at the hotel. What happened is something that happens a lot in the real world. There was a management change, and when new management comes in, sometimes it means that there's new lines of communications that have to be reestablished. There's a new understanding and new recognitions and new relationships that need to be developed. And when that change happened, they just weren't there. And so they put that in place, recognizing honestly that the hotel group is under a lot of pressures too. They're being overcome and overwhelmed by parking on their area, and they're having a hard time maintaining parking spaces for their users, right? And so it just adds to that really complex tapestry of demands and the dynamic needs throughout our downtown, which also vary from place to place and lot to lot. And so to think that we can just do a one size fits all solution all at once would be, I think, an error. But also, if we didn't recognize that there were just real world confusions and complexities that take place when management changes over that created today. But frankly, their response was pretty quick and helpful today. And so I want to thank them as well for being willing to hear us out on behalf of downtown businesses, just saying, hey, this is chaos. This isn't going to work for downtown economy, right? So thanks to the staff as well who jumped in. I mean, we put a ton of resource into this today across every single department, I think, from really top to bottom. So I'm glad we were able to respond. I hope we don't have to keep doing it this way, but if we don't come up with a managed parking plan moving forward, this is our reality, and we don't want this to be our reality. Thanks, you guys.
Question? Question? Anything else happening? Just parking?
Today, April Fools, yeah.
I was gonna suggest maybe we outlaw April Fool's Day for a while. Most of us have had enough chaos in our lives for
At
a
least for a
while.
year. Can you pass a resolution or something?
Yeah.
I think, I don't know, I know that there's been some things posted on social media about just safety around the river, and that's obviously a concern, and hit close to home with somebody that I know fairly well who passed away in Riverdale and we don't know exactly what happened, but I think he maybe had gotten close to the river, and 86-year-old man, just anyway, it's tough. So hopefully we're still pushing out all those things. And like I say, I've seen some social media posts about river safety, but as they start releasing the water from Pine View to prepare for the thaw, it's always exciting. I love it. I love going down there and seeing that water come through there. It's incredible. It's just the power of the rivers, but it's also a safety thing. So
I didn't know that was a personal acquaintance. I'm sorry to hear
Yeah,
that. But you're right. And that's messaging we can, Mayor's actually working on that. She'll send a note to Chief Matthew to see if we can add to the messaging that Weaver County's been doing through the search and rescue team, which we appreciated. Very timely and necessary.
On a side note with that, Councilman Ritchie, it's amazing how full the reservoir is. Pine View.
yeah.
It's not far from being at capacity, maybe 8 or 10 feet, maybe
Wow.
at the most.
Yeah.
Go see it now because it won't happen again.
Just not too close.
So, yeah, yeah.
Don't follow him.
There's anything else, we're happy to answer questions or see on the other side.
Any other things? Any questions?
Just on Pine View and our water system and our 36-inch pipe, how are things coming? And is it 36 inches that you're laying in the ground from the reservoir up to the highway currently? Or is it look smaller because it's in a distance, or is it actually a smaller pipe?
The pipe that's going in right now from the dock to the dam is a smaller diameter pipe. So we ran hydraulics to determine that we could put in something. So it's about a 30-inch pipe, and hydraulically, it made sense that we could do that. So that does a couple things. We don't have to dig up UDOT's wall that they put in that would have been a few extra $1 million. And then there's some other impediments we don't have to put in the way of people trying to access up and down the canyon. So we've been able to push most of that pipe in. We've done over 5,000 feet and have got our way all the way up to the dam structure.
So you're slipping this inside the existing pipe?
Yep. So that's to that point there. So that makes sense because we only have the wells that are feeding it.
Uh-huh.
As soon as we get to our treatment plant, we now have the treatment plant that'll be added to that as a source, the wells, Wheeler Creek, amongst a few other connections. So from the treatment plant going down, that 36 inches, that additional 6 inches becomes pretty important.
Yeah.
And so that's when we'll have to start removing it. So being that we're just at one source, and that one source being the wells, that 30 inches made sense, which is why we're able to do an alternate type installation.
Great.
But we feel like we're making really good progress. We've got a few items that we're looking to touch up, and we're excited to start trying to move on to some of the next phases, but we should be wrapping up towards the end of this month with that first phase and getting that water turned back in and moving forward. So
Okay.
we're excited.
Great.
That does not include the water over to the wells, or does it include the water?
That does not include that portion yet.
Okay.
So we're still evaluating that. We're trying to come up with economical solutions, ensuring that we have something that's not going to be problematic going forward. In fact, we're even talking, does it make sense that can we run an additional line and have something in the future so we never have to do this again? So we're evaluating all those options, and I don't anticipate we'll do that next year because I believe the capacity of Pine View right now is at 88%. And there was over 70,000 acre feet up in the mountains, and they said it was about 20,000 to fill it up. So we have plenty of water up there. We don't anticipate we want to do anything with it, but that'll give us time to work with our partners and figure out the best solution to crossing so that we don't have problems with boat props or anything else hitting our water line as they come across. But that's a great question.
So there's a fun rumor floating about that as you develop, you put the water line down through the canyon, that they're also going to be putting in part of the extending the Ogden River Parkway up through the canyon. Is that a plan that we have?
We haven't done anything with as far as a plan for a trail or anything else. The items that we've been looking at, our coordinations have been with like Rocky Mountain Power. We've been talking to Comcast and a few other groups. We have been talking about access and access needs. There have been some, preliminary discussions with other groups down at the mouth of the canyon. Are there items that make sense that we can combine and do together? But mainly our focus has been on how do we get the water line up and down the canyon? How do we put something in that makes it so we can access it and get to where we need to? And then we just have been trying to talk to our partners outside of that on other uses, but we haven't really made tons of progress in some of those scenarios. And probably my best hope is we can get something figured out with Rocky Mountain Power and what we need to do with them getting some of their power lines and stuff adjusted from some of the problems we've been having. I know there is a UDOT project at the mouth of the canyon where they're talking about a bridge to try and get across. And I do know UDOT does have continual issues with car crashes amongst other items. I believe there was a story that came out yesterday of some people that parked in the canyon got their vehicle crushed by a boulder. So there's always items that I think people are talking about is how do we improve transit in the canyon? So it's probably one of those conversations that's happening probably in some of these other atmospheres and things that are being all brought together. But if I would say if there is a solution, something that made sense, I think we'd definitely be in favor for it. And it'd be nice to bring some of those economies together, especially if we're doing something in construction. So.
Yeah.
Add to that. Just say that everything Taylor said is spot on. I asked our staff to be focused on the pipeline. Speaking as the mayor and on behalf of the city, I love the idea of a trail up the canyon. It would be an enormous value add. It would connect active transportation to the valley, to Ogden. An excellent project within the context of the pillars for human success within the Ogden Way. It fits everything that I like and want and need, and I think we need for this community. But recognize that it's also a project that extends outside of our boundaries. Certainly we have easements and legal access for our pipeline. Pipeline is the priority. But I think that there's a ton of room for partners to come to the table and help with a project like that for the active transportation and recreation that I certainly want to support and help. I just want to make sure that our staff is really focused on the pipeline and making sure that it's a success and that other partners can in the community, especially the NGOs, et cetera, that work on those kinds of things can engage with residents in the canyon and things like that. So that's kind of where we see our position is. I'd love to support something like that, but I think that others need to take a leadership role in that piece while we make sure that we're focused on the pipeline.
Mayor, while you're there and we're on this subject, a little over a year ago, we entered into an agreement with the state where we exchanged some water going out toward Willard Bay for $10 million for this project. And we were gonna abate a botulism problem with birds. Did we get any feedback from Natural Resources on that? I didn't hear anything. What can you tell us about what was solved with that? If
Last
anything?
year was the first time we did it.
Right.
It worked out pretty well. There were some limitations on on some of the structure at Willard Bay on how much water they could remove at a time, which then dictates how much comes out and for how long to meet the objective. And so it's going to be a year-to-year coordination with DWR to make sure that given the water levels that are out at Willard Spur, that we are releasing at a rate that is conducive to the botulism that we're trying to address. So it's all going to come down to the timing and the rate and the duration of the release, and that we'll coordinate that every summer leading up to the release, and we'll do that coordination with DOR and Big Bay Basin Water Conservancy District with input from DWR in particular. Coincidentally, in this last legislative session, I do understand, I didn't track it super closely because I wasn't in the room, but I do understand that our negotiation and agreement with the state last year set the table for an even bigger agreement with other cities down south this year for water to go to the Great Salt Lake through other means on the south end of the lake. And so it's a concept that is gaining some traction, and I'm glad that we were able to be kind of leading out in that.
So I'm not sure I got a clear understanding, Mayor. Did we help some birds or was there okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. It's hard to quantify how many would have died if we hadn't, but we do know that the intervention helps address the outbreak, which then helps to address mortality rates.
Yeah.
And we did not, I took our staff out there with DWR and there were no birds that were observed at the time that we were out there.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Mayor. Karen? Emil?
No?
Yeah, it's close.
Very good. Thank you.
See you in the other room. Edmund. Ed, sitting by the vent in the bus. Oh, now. It
Stinky.
sneaks.